the other team in this matchup, St. Louis BattleHawks, their odds to win the championship are 10-1 at DraftKings and a number of other books across the industry. Their win total at Caesars is 3.5, which is tied for the lowest mark we have, tied with the Seattle Dragons. Again, they are 7.5-point underdogs on the road. Sean, what do you think of the St. Louis BattleHawks?
I mean, it seems like their head coaching staff is probably the most inexperienced. They have Jonathan Hayes and Chuck Long, so I think that's why they're underdogs here, and their roster is pretty weak. I mean, to be fair, the running backs are pretty solid. They have Christine Michael and Matt Jones, so I think especially earlier in the season, if teams maybe they'll rely on the run more. It might take a couple of games for the passing game to gel for teams, so they might have that advantage early on. But other than that, I think they're probably going to be one of the worst teams. Having said that, win total at 3.5, I would probably take the over on that. Before we even see a team play, betting that a team will lose 70% of their games is still aggressive no matter what you think. So they would be kind of like in the AAF, the Birmingham Iron were the worst team, and they had a low season win total, and they surpassed that in like the first 4 games. So I think you can argue a team with a low win total like this, you might as well just bet the over, because like I said, you want to expect teams to be closer to average than we think. But yeah, definitely on paper, they definitely look like one of the worst rosters, and this matchup in particular is pretty tough out of the gate. So I'm not really gonna take a stab at the spread. I think it's worth pointing out the spread's +7 right now. The way the 2-point conversion, the teams can go for 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
I don't think 7 is going to be a key number. So I wouldn't think, I'm getting 7. I'm getting a good number here. I think XFL, it's going to be pretty fluid. So I would almost treat all the numbers almost the same. So I'm not going to just take them if I think, +7 is a good number. It's not like that. So I'm just staying away from the spread right now, but I'm just saying I think this, +7 is not going to be as valuable as NFL.
Yeah, I hear you there. You're right. One thing that is so fascinating is that this league, I think even more than the NFL, because of how the rules are structured, this league is predicated on having, I think, a good offensive mind, whether it's the head coach or coordinator, whatever it is, a good play caller and a good quarterback. And this team, I think, has neither. That's not to say that Jordan Teamu can't be a good quarterback. It's just that this was a guy who wasn't able to put up, a lot of great numbers in college, even though he had A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf as his starting wide receivers.
And Dawson Knox, baby.
And Dawson Knox as his tight end. So it's, it's not something that really encourages a lot of enthusiasm. And then he has a head coach who's known as the tight ends coach under Marvin Lewis for years in Cincinnati. And, the offensive coordinator, Chuck Long, who last was calling plays for Kansas in 2011. Like this is not a situation in which you think, oh, these guys are going to be innovative. They're really going to know how to maximize the skill that their quarterback has. So I'm very pessimistic. Raybon, what do you think about this team?
Well, it's interesting because I think this is a team that, for DFS purposes, especially in tournaments, this could be an interesting stacking team. Because if we're all high on the on Dallas, then you're going to have that 2-minute comeback period. You're going to have a game where maybe St. Louis has to put up some points, and so. Well, yeah, I think they have one of the worst offensive rosters. You kind of look up and down the roster and you say, okay, well, somebody's going to have to catch the ball. Somebody's going to have to, essentially try to keep pace in this game. So I think, perhaps their top receivers, they have Mumphrey, who played some NFL ball, and they have DeMornay Pearsonell, who spent smaller receiver who spent the preseason with the Oakland Raiders. I think he caught 9 of 14 targets for 70 yards. So underneath kind of guy, but could potentially rack up some high PPR totals. So I think guys like that, if you're going to go with Dallas or kind of, throw a lineup in with Ferguson or Badette or maybe both of them, this is a team that I think will probably be low owned because of, just because of the spreads and because of their roster. But that this might actually be a good team to stack in tournaments with some of those Dallas guys to get some differentiation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I see your point. It's well taken. But I'm still kind of pessimistic, which is the thesis. That's the reason for it in investing, is that you will have too many people who are pessimistic. But I don't think it's uncertain how important the running game is going to be in the XFL. Yeah. And I think the strength of this offense is the running backs. Kristen Michael, Matt Jones, Leonard Tillery was a great player in college. Keith Ford, I believe, was at LSU. Texas A&M, and was productive there. You take those guys out, and this looks like one of the weakest skill position groups in the league. So I will probably be fading. But if you want exposure, I think you either go contrarian, as Chris said, or you think that Kristen Michael finally fulfills his potential in the XFL and has a big game here. Corner, anyone you are interested in for DFS?
Yeah, I think Christine Michael, he's the guy I'm willing to take a stab at. Like Raybon mentioned earlier, I think wide receiver has a ton of value. So you're going to have to spend up somewhere. So I have Michael as my number one running back for week one. He's still only 29. We could see, Trent Richardson in the AAF style comeback. Like, he could dominate this league. So I think spending up to get him makes sense. I think he's guaranteed a workhorse load to start the season. So I think getting that guaranteed production at running back makes sense week one, where there's a lot more uncertainty, and then wide receiver, we can take more flyers and stuff. But I'm not going to mess around too much at running back, so I think he's going to be my top play. I can't figure out who's going to be the number one receiver. I do like Raybon's point. I think they'll be low owned, so you can throw in some flyers there. But I think just the only guy that I think is worth owning from this team is probably Michael.